ass off, and you did.
Yes, sir.
You did that, okay? We made 2 mistakes on defense, all right, to win a game. That's what it comes down to. Offense, you guys played your ass off. We challenged you, and you guys played your ass off. Give us a
Hell of
chance,
a game, man.
okay? Defensively, 2 mistakes. I want y'all to hear something, okay? Throughout your entire life, people will tell you what you can't do, what you won't do. You know what you can do. And what got me?
Yes, sir.
You looked at right in the eye. You guys had a lot of distractions going on this week, and you came together, and you fought your ass off on the road, a top 20 team, and took it to overtime. And we said we do however long it takes. Okay? You did that. You battled your ass off. We didn't come for more victories. We ain't happy about keeping it close because that ain't Auburn. We're here to win. We're going to win these games and win championships. That is what we are here at Auburn. We're going to win these games and win championships. But that is a step in the right direction. You got to go battle and be there in the end first. All right? So treat it as a step. You got me? And there's some fabric and fiber in this program and with this team. You understand me? We're learning.
Wow. Get me a brick wall. I might run through it after listening to DJ Durkin in the postgame locker room after Vanderbilt 45, Auburn 38 in overtime. What an incredible difference in attitude, in emotion, in feeling after what was, bottom line, another SEC loss, another one-score SEC loss, another opportunity to beat a ranked opponent gone by the wayside. And yet the feeling in the Auburn family since Saturday evening after that game and then after hearing DJ Durkin has sparked the great DJ Durkin debate. Should he be the next Auburn head coach? Should they remove the interim guy tag? Should they ride with DJ? Bring in a whiz-bang offensive coordinator and a whiz-bang defensive coordinator, because for all of the good things we saw from the Auburn offense on Saturday, things we had not seen all year long, the offense finds a pulse, and what happens to the defense? It flatlines against Diego Pavia and company. And so DJ Durkin, after that performance, rightly or wrongly, for better or worse, seems to be in the middle of this Auburn coaching search, at least at the moment, at least in the minds of a lot of fans. We're going to debate that today. We're going to get into the finer points of this discussion. It's not our decision to make, but we have some thoughts, as usual, here on Scarbo Knows. How's everyone doing today on this Monday? We have an actual freeze warning, not a colloquial freeze warning. That's gone. And don't you love Lane Kiffin? He had to tweet out a screenshot of, I believe it was his car screen this morning, and he tweeted out freeze warning because it was 31 degrees in Oxford, Mississippi. A lot of that going around the deep south today, deep freeze. No more freeze warnings at Auburn, though. That cliche never worked. That coach never worked. And now Auburn is squarely in the middle of a coaching search that might ramp up this week because it is an open week on the Plains. The Tigers get a week off to perhaps concern themselves with some other things besides getting ready for Mercer. And they better get ready for Mercer because they just clinched a tie, at least a tie for the Southern Conference Championship for the second straight year. It's a good football team that will roll into Jordan-Hare a week from Saturday. But more interesting things will be happening off the field in Auburn this week. Thank you for joining us, everyone, on a rare mid-afternoon edition of Scarbo Knows. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Wherever you're watching, thank you. But if you're watching on YouTube, we always encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We are growing by leaps and bounds through your support, through the stewardship of executive producer Brendan Martin on the Sidelines.live network. And thanks to our sponsor, Money Management Services, right here in Birmingham, Alabama. They've been in business since 1992. They're good friends of mine. They will take great care of you. We're going to hear from the Rice family and Money Management Services later in the show. Right now, we're going to dive into the state of the Auburn football program as it is 1 week into the post-Hugh Freeze era. And we saw some encouraging signs on Saturday, particularly on the side of the ball that was supposed to be Hugh Freeze's area of expertise. And the first thing you had to say as you were watching Auburn move the ball, gain first downs, score touchdowns, is where has this been all year? Same players. Well, a relatively new starting quarterback in Ashton Daniels, who played the game of his life. He did some good things at Stanford before he transferred to Auburn, but goodness gracious, where did that come from? Let's look at some of the things we witnessed on Saturday at Vanderbilt. And we have to ask this question, though. Is the Vandy loss just fine and dandy? Let's look at some of the numbers in this game. For Vanderbilt, again, it was 45-38 in overtime. The Commodores won, got to 8-2. I think they're 8-2 for the first time since about 1930, to tell you what kind of work Clark Lee is doing in Nashville. But Vanderbilt rolled up its highest number of total yards in a conference game since 2016. Diego Pavia, the Hugh Freeze killer, finished with a career-high 489 total yards. He threw for 377, and he ran for 112 more. And kudos to our friend Cole Kubelik for this mind-blowing stat. This was Vanderbilt's first win ever, as in since the beginning of time, when allowing 38 or more points. Until Saturday, Vanderbilt was 0-170. 0 wins, 170 losses when allowing 38 or more points, and now they have 1 win in that spot. So Auburn, they did things, again, we had not seen in some time. In fact, in a long, long time, in the sense that this was the first time Auburn had a 300-yard passer. That would be Ashton Daniels. He threw for 353. A 100-yard receiver. They actually had 2 receivers, both Cam Coleman with 143 and Eric Singleton with 102, go over 100 yards. And they had a 100-yard rusher. Jeremiah Cobb finished with 115. And that's the first time Auburn had combined all of those offensive performances in one game since the 2004 SEC championship game. Of course, the big difference, that was against a team from the state of Tennessee. That was the University of Tennessee. And, of course, Auburn won that game and every other game in 2004 as the Tigers went undefeated and were named national champion by someone. And they just most recently claimed that title, among others. So that's how long it's been since we saw that kind of offensive performance from Auburn. It was the team's most total yards, 563 in a conference game since 2019 against Mississippi State, and the most total yards Auburn's had against a ranked opponent since 2016 when they destroyed number 17 Arkansas, as Gus Malzahn liked to do. He was the head coach at the time. So you have to ask yourself, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Why all the good feeling among the Auburn family when one side of the ball was lights out and the other side of the ball couldn't find the light switch to turn off the Vanderbilt offense? A complete role reversal. So DJ Durkin becomes the interim head coach. He has some input into what the offensive staff is doing. He make sure that Derek Nix is the play caller, as we told you last week, in what was an unmistakable shot at Hugh Freeze. DJ Durkin said Derek Nix would call the plays on every down, and he did a fantastic job of it. But then you can't ignore what happened on the other side of the ball. When DJ Durkin wasn't focused 100% on the defense was a shadow of its former self. Giving up 45 points, giving up all those yards, letting Diego Pavia run wild, failing to adjust when Vanderbilt, after Auburn jumped out to a 17-3 lead, what did Vanderbilt do? They adjusted. They went more up-tempo, and the Auburn defense did not handle it well at all. Which leads us to another question. How good is DJ Durkin's Auburn defense? We've talked about it all year. We've given them plenty of credit. Have we given them too much credit? Perhaps. Saturday would indicate that. Let's look at some of the pros and cons of this Auburn defense under DJ Durkin. Until the pros, again, we mentioned this stat last week. Until the Vanderbilt game, Auburn was one of only 3 FBS teams that had not allowed more than 24 points in a single game. And the other 2 teams in that category were number 1, Ohio State, and number 2, Indiana. And Indiana barely escaped State College with a victory, and maybe the play of the year, the game-winning touchdown pass from Fernando Mendoza to, I'm going to forget his name, and I shouldn't, because that's a shame on my part, because that's one of the greatest catches you'll ever see. How that dude got his feet down in bounds didn't seem anatomically or physically possible, but he did, and Indiana won the game. So that's a pro for what Auburn's defense has done throughout the season. They have held 6 of 7 SEC opponents now below their season scoring average, and some rather significantly. They've improved this year. Remember, DJ Durkin arrived at Auburn a year ago as defensive coordinator, so this is his second season on the Plains. They improved from last year to this year in rushing defense in the conference from 6th to 3rd. Those are all good things. Those are all positives, steps in the right direction. But there have been some cons. There have been some drawbacks before we got to Saturday. Saturday was just the third time this year, not the first time, but the third time this year that the Auburn defense could not hold a lead in the fourth quarter. Happened against Oklahoma, happened against Missouri, and it happened against Vanderbilt. That's a mark against classifying DJ Durkin as an elite defensive coordinator. And if you look at the overall, you compare this year's Auburn defense to last year's Auburn defense under DJ Durkin. Did you know they rank in the exact same spots as they did a year ago in the SEC in scoring defense, where they're 8th, barely in the top half, and total defense, where they're 9th, on the other side of the top half? Is that elite defense? Is that elite coaching? And then, while they did improve their run defense this year from a year ago, on the pass defense side of the equation, they have slipped from 9th in the SEC a year ago to 13th this year. And that was highlighted Saturday as Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers and the Vanderbilt passing game just torched the Auburn defense. In fact, not only did Auburn have 2 100-yard receivers in that game, Vanderbilt had 2 100-yard receivers in that game. Now, I know some people want to give DJ Durkin an asterisk, give him a pass for Saturday because he had a lot more on his plate, and I totally understand that. I totally buy into that. He wasn't focused exclusively on the defense. He had to worry about the offense. He had to worry about the overall operation. He had to worry about taking the team on the road and all the little headaches that can happen when you pack up 130, 150, whatever the traveling party is, and you take them across state lines, that there are potential roadblocks there that a head coach has to deal with, that DJ Durkin didn't have to deal with until the past week. So, no, his defense was nothing like it had been earlier. But I would make the case that as good a job as he has done, with very little support from the offensive side of the ball, which elevates his performance as a defensive coordinator, they haven't quite been elite. They haven't quite been one of the best defenses in the conference, let alone the country. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing DJ Durkin's work as a defensive coordinator. I'm trying to put it in perspective, okay? Because there are some people in the Auburn family who would argue, okay, if you don't make DJ Durkin the head coach, whoever you hire as head coach should do everything in his power to retain DJ Durkin as the defensive coordinator. And my argument is wrong. Whoever you hire as head coach, you have to trust to hire his own staff. Because the type of coach you need to turn this thing around, and Auburn is hurtling toward a 5th straight losing season. Yeah, there's talent on the roster, but that talent has gotten too used to losing. Despite that passionate Interesting. I think we may have. Did I lose my connection there, Brendan? Was I out of pocket there for a minute? Did I freeze? Did the freeze warning get me? And let me repeat, in case I did freeze, in case I did pop out.
You're good now, sir.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for that. Don't know what happened. Apparently the Wi-Fi is not used to this cold weather either. So the thing that was most interesting in the post-game locker room speech by DJ Durkin, you could see the passion. You could see the depth of his feeling. But the most interesting part of his words was when he said, they're going to win games and they're going to win championships, and he plans to be there for it. He said, we. Does he know something we don't know? Perhaps not. He was probably caught up in the emotion a bit. But what did he have to say more recently in a more measured setting today, Monday, November 10th, 2025, DJ Durkin spoke to the Monday Morning Quarterback Club here in Birmingham. And before his speech to the room, he met the media. And he had some interesting things to say there. Brendan, let's listen to a snippet of DJ Durkin today speaking here in Birmingham. Do we have that, Brendan? Do we have Brendan? Am I shouting into the abyss? Here we go.
Yeah, I'm very involved. I have a full-time investment in this program and this place, and plan on being here for the long term. And so those are ongoing discussions all the time. I think the biggest thing to me is you can look at how our players responded and played together. You know, I think that tells a lot about how they feel about one another and feel about this program. And you know, we know it. There's a lot of clutter and distractions put in their minds, and you know, it's the world we've created in college football.
The question that led to that answer was, what does he think about retaining the roster, doing what he can while he is there, while he is the interim head coach, about retaining the roster, and whether he might become the head coach. And again, he put out there that he plans to be there. Now, he didn't say he plans to be the head coach. He didn't say he plans to stay as defensive coordinator, depending on who the new head coach is, if it is not indeed him. But he sounded rather confident that he's got more than 2 games left as the Auburn, well, I was going to say head coach, at least on the Auburn staff, shall we put it that way. Of course, Auburn does have 2 games left in the regular season. If they were to win both, they could sneak into a bowl game. They're 4-6. They could get to 6-6. They play Mercer, a very good FCS team, after this bye week, a week from Saturday. And then, of course, the Iron Bowl will be in Auburn, and all eyes will be on DJ Durkin. Many people will look at that as another step in him possibly getting the full-time job, his last audition, if you will, to show the powers that be, John Cohen, the committee of one, that DJ Durkin deserves to be the head coach. Does he? Even if he beats Mercer and Alabama, even if he gets Auburn to 6-6 and they sneak into a minor bowl game, would that be enough to earn him the head coaching job at Auburn University, a place that has won national championships, a place that has won SEC championships, a place that looked Nick Saban in the eye and played him as tough as anybody during his run of dominance in Tuscaloosa? Would DJ Durkin have done enough? Let's look at his record as a head coach, because we do have some receipts here. We do have some evidence here. He's actually been the head coach now at 3 different places. We didn't talk about this last week, but he was at Florida in 2014. Brendan will remember this. He was the defensive coordinator for Will Muschamp. And if there is a pro, I didn't put this on the pros and cons list earlier. If there's a pro in favor of DJ Durkin, just as a ball coach, it's that Will Muschamp loves him. Will Muschamp thinks the world of DJ Durkin. And I would suggest that you do not bring up the subject of the tragedy that happened at Maryland when DJ Durkin was the head coach and blame it on DJ Durkin in the presence of Will Muschamp. You might see the famous Will Muschamp stare, feel the famous Will Muschamp wrath. I don't know if he would do to you what he did to a few whiteboards through the years, but Will Muschamp does think very, very highly of DJ Durkin. And in that 2014 season, which was Will Muschamp's last in Gainesville, DJ took over for the bowl game. It actually was the Birmingham Bowl. In a weird coincidence, Florida beat East Carolina that day. I'm not sure that's a big feather in your cap, but he was 1-0 as the interim coach at Florida. And then, of course, he has been a head coach for 2 years. We've talked about this at Maryland. The record is not good, 10-15 overall, 5-13 in the Big Ten. And the biggest black mark on that record, 1-8 against ranked teams, and they weren't close. In fact, here's another weird coincidence. In those 9 games as the Maryland head coach against ranked teams, DJ Durkin's Terps gave up an average of 45 points a game. And in his one game as the Auburn interim head coach, how many points did Auburn give up? 45 on Saturday at Vanderbilt. So he's now 0-1 with the Tigers. So a lot of weird coincidences about DJ Durkin and his head coaching stints, brief as they may have been. Again, you have to ask yourself, is DJ Durkin the best candidate for the Auburn coaching job? John Cohen doesn't have to answer that today. He doesn't have to answer it tomorrow. I believe you won't get the final answer until after the Iron Bowl, but I don't believe it'll take long after the Iron Bowl to get that final answer. And if you're honest with yourself, if you can put your emotion aside, if you can step out of the good feelings, the good vibes you felt as an Auburn fan on Saturday because your offense showed a pulse, because Ashton Daniels was a quality quarterback making good decisions based off really strong and smart play calls by Derek Nix, you can put all of that aside and ask yourself that. And I don't believe that you can answer in the affirmative. I don't believe you can come to the conclusion that DJ Durkin is absolutely the best person to become the head coach of the Auburn football program going into 2026. And you can talk about his value in retaining the roster. As close as those guys felt in that locker room in Nashville on Saturday evening, some of those guys are going to leave. It's the way the world works now in college football. And yes, Cam Coleman had his best game at Auburn. He caught 11 balls. And the touchdown catch and then the 2-point conversion catch, one-handers each with different hands. I don't know how he saw the throw that Ashton Daniels made for the touchdown, because the DB was clearly blocking his line of sight. And somehow, maybe it was telepathy, he stuck out his left paw and snatched that thing in against all reason and logic. One of the unbelievable catches of the year. The stakes weren't the same as Indiana and Penn State in that catch, but just unbelievable. But he catches 11 balls. Eric Singleton catches 10 balls. They're both over 100 yards receiving. Again, Ashton Daniels looked, I'm not going to say it. Let's just say there was some Nick Marshall in what Ashton Daniels did Saturday. He's got a long way to go to be Nick Marshall or be another Nick Marshall, which leads to another interesting conundrum that is now on DJ Durkin's plate. Ashton Daniels, having played as much football as he has, might be able to come back next year, but only if he plays in only one more game. He will burn his red shirt, or Auburn will burn his red shirt, if they play him against Mercer and against Alabama in the Iron Bowl. And DJ Durkin was asked about that today at the Monday Morning Quarterback Club, and he said those are ongoing discussions and decisions, and they involve what's best for the individual, Ashton Daniels in this case, and what's best for the program. So no answer on if Ashton Daniels will play against Mercer. Because if you make the decision that you want him to return, you don't want to burn his red shirt, you want him to have one more year of eligibility as the Auburn quarterback, obviously you're going to play him against Alabama, not against Mercer. Maybe Mercer is an opportunity for Deuce Knight, the 5-star freshman, to get his feet fully wet and let him run the show for the entire game. Yeah, if you lose the game, you lose the opportunity to go to a minor bowl, you lose the opportunity to get those extra bowl practices, and coaches love those. Again, that's more developmental time for the younger players, the more little-used players from this season. But let's be honest, in the big picture, winning or losing against Mercer is not going to have much of an impact on Auburn going forward. Giving Deuce Knight perhaps an entire game as the starting quarterback, and if it just doesn't work, going back to Jackson Arnold might make more sense. Again, if Ashton Daniels wants to play another year of college football and you would like to have him on your roster next year, and you have to make a choice, you're going to play him against Alabama. Because we saw it in Nashville. The dude can make plays. If you put him in the right situation and the offensive line does its job and the receivers get open and they make some different play calls. Holy cow. We saw the same route tree. We saw a much different route tree. We saw the same route tree under Hugh Freeze week after week after week after week. And it just wasn't working. It wasn't creating explosive plays. We saw some throws across the middle. Imagine that. I didn't know that Auburn knew that was legal. That was allowed within the rules. You just saw just a different level of execution and effort and game planning and play calling. And it just makes you wonder, what was Hugh Freeze doing week after week when he wasn't playing golf? How much effort was he putting into trying to adapt the offense to his talent, trying to adjust the offense to the defenses that they were seeing week in and week out? That they could make that adjustment in 1 week's time with Derek Nix fully in charge as the offensive coordinator and Hugh Freeze out of the picture, that they could look that much better in that short amount of time. And again, credit to DJ Durkin for putting Derek Nix in charge, not Ken Austin. I'm sure he was involved in the operation, but they put it on Derek Nix, and boy, he got a lot of FaceTime in the press box, didn't he? With his headset on, with his walkie-talkie, talking to Ashton Daniels in his headset. I assume that's who he was talking to. I don't know that for sure. But let's also be honest. As good as Auburn felt after a loss, it was still a loss. And as good a job as DJ Durkin did as the interim head coach, he still wouldn't be the interim head coach of the year in this state. Or have you forgotten what UAB did without an open week to make changes after they fired the blowhard Trent Dilfer and they put offensive coordinator Alex Mortensen in charge, and 1 week later, they beat number 22 Memphis. The woebegone UAB Blazers beat a ranked team a week after making a coaching change and putting Alex Mortensen in charge. And the Blazers have kind of receded to their level. They lost their last 2 games on the road. They lost to Rice on Saturday. So you can only sustain that bump, that interim guy bump we talked about last week, for so long. Will it continue for Auburn under DJ Durkin? I have my doubts. They're going to be playing an Alabama team that's going to be fighting for a playoff berth and maybe an SEC championship berth. Although if Alabama doesn't figure out a way to run the ball more effectively than it has most of the season, more effectively than it did Saturday against LSU in a rather lackluster 20-9 victory over those Tigers, this Iron Bowl could be far more competitive than Alabama would like it to be. There's one last thing I wanted to share with you today about Auburn going forward that might give you a bit of a case of the shakes, and not just because of the dropping temperatures. Brendan, let's look at that last graphic. Auburn versus its new SEC permanent opponents. And of course, this was released some time ago. Auburn, for the next 4 years at least, they're going to revisit these permanent opponents every 4 years. The SEC is, as the conference announced when it released the 3 teams that each team is going to play every year moving forward with the 9-game conference schedule. Auburn gets Alabama and Georgia as expected, and then they will get Vanderbilt. And these numbers are not good. Auburn has lost its last 5 games to Alabama, with 1 more to come in a few weeks on the 29th. in Jordan-Hare Stadium. They have lost 9 straight to Georgia. Inexplicable and inexcusable. But they've also lost their last 2 games to Vanderbilt. And though they have not been regular opponents, they've lost 4 of their last 6 against the Commodores dating back to 2008. And usually playing Vanderbilt coincides with an Auburn coach losing his job after losing to Vanderbilt. Happened to Tommy Tuberville in 2008, and it happened to Gene Chizik in 2012. And they didn't even wait until Hugh Freeze got to Nashville. They fired him before Diego Pavia could complete the hat trick against Auburn, which of course he did. So that's where we are. Auburn gets to focus on its coaching search this week. You will hear a lot of buzz. You will hear rumors. You will hear speculation. Like I said, in a coaching search, your defining principle should be thems that know, don't tell, and thems that tell, don't know. Keep that in mind as we go through the next week. All right, that's going to do it for us today for Scarbo Knows. I'm Kevin Scarbinsky. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. Or if there is an audio version, you can listen to on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your favorite podcast. And then you can watch, of course, on YouTube. Check out my YouTube channel, Kevin Scarbinsky-Scarbo Knows. And we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. And we would greatly appreciate it if you would check out our sponsor, Money Management Services. Let's hear what they have to say. I'm out. See ya.
Since 1992, Money Management Services in Birmingham has provided individuals and business owners with trusted, fee-only financial advice. We're more than advisors, we're your financial family. From retirement planning to tax strategies and estate planning, our team builds personalized wealth management plans tailored to your life. At Money Management Services, we treat you like family, because when you walk through our doors, you become part of ours.